Taylor Lorenz, welcome back to the show. It's nice to see you. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. I don't know why I have to have that exchange first, even though it's so cursory, but I don't know. I just need it. I can't start without it. All right. Let's dive right into what we were just talking about, which is this lawsuit or these series of lawsuits brought by an extremely wealthy streamer. He became very wealthy as a result of what had been the popularity of his show, Ethan Klein. And I think he lost a lot of his audience over the last couple of years because he was identified as kind of a hardcore Zionist, which isn't a good way to keep a younger online audience. But also it just kind of, he seemed to become just, the whole show seems to be about his vendettas. And one of the ways he expressed these vendettas is that he searched out three, I wouldn't call them tiny, but certainly not at all large streamers, younger women, and sued them for copyright infringement, but for putting a video of his on their channel and kind of commenting on it, reacting to it. And it's like, even if they did the copywriting, he made it clear that the rationale, the motive for it was that he has a ton of money and knows that they have none, and therefore can destroy them simply by bankrupting them or forcing them to settle. And last night, one of them read a script that was designed to humiliate her as much as possible. Can you tell us a little bit about like where he is in kind of the ecosystem of how information is being consumed in that world, but also this tactic of bullying people who don't have financial resources to force them into submission?
Yeah, so let's be clear. Ethan Klein is a multi-millionaire YouTuber. He's one of the richest YouTubers out there. He's consistently in YouTube's top earners in terms of their podcast charts that they have. His podcast, the H3H3 podcast, has been going, I think, for a decade, if not longer. He's sort of an OG YouTuber, so he really got famous in the 2010s by covering drama and kind of being like an edgelord on the internet. He famously had a show with Hassan Piker called The Leftovers. October 7th happened. They had this messy breakup because, as you mentioned, Ethan's a hardcore Zionist. His wife, Ela, was in the IDF, has continued to defend the IDF. And he's used his millions and millions of dollars to essentially...
Right? She's Israeli herself.
Israeli. Yes.
And they lived in Israel, I think, too, right? So
yes. So these are Israel defenders here. You know, he's talked about wanting to go back to Israel, show everyone how beautiful Israel is. He's denied the genocide. He's, it's disgusting what the stuff that he's doing in terms of that. So he lost, a faction of his audience, but he, again, is this multi-millionaire, lives in this mansion in a gated community in one of the nicest, richest areas of Los Angeles. And he uses his vast amount of money and the attention that he gets from monetizing these hate campaigns to financially abuse these women. As you mentioned, these women have no audience compared to Ethan Klein. These are three very small Twitch streamers with a few thousand watchers or whatever, viewers. And they reacted to a video of his, something that he encouraged people to do. He encouraged people to react, to his videos. This is very common in Twitch culture. They reacted, they criticized him, and he didn't like that. And so he used his money to essentially financially destroy them. And none of this is about copyright. As you mentioned, it's all about sort of just dominating them and destroying their lives. And he's a vindictive psychopath.
Here's the thing, too. I don't know a lot about the substance of the dispute. I didn't really follow it. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that they did technically violate copyright or maybe even intentionally did so. I mean, there are like YouTube programs who just take my show wholesale and they just upload it to their channel. And maybe they're like, we're going to comment on this. And then they barely comment. And obviously I could sue them and I know that, but I don't want to I don't want to spend my life trying, it reminds me of like, you go to the gym every day, you're super strong, you happen to be born like 6'3", and then you go out in the street like looking for people who are like 5'6" and really skinny to beat up so that you can feel good about yourself. Like that's not what psychologically healthy people do. So I feel like I've been wronged on the internet in all sorts of ways, and maybe like I have a fleeting sense of like, God, I could destroy that person if I wanted using a tactic like this, but I just would never do it because it's so corrosive to the soul, but it's also kind of threatening to free speech, right? Like if this becomes a tactic that people commonly use, you can destroy anybody you want and intimidate them out of criticizing you. Like talk about that more specific feature of just like being so addicted, but also the broader implications of this.
Yeah. I mean, what Ethan is doing is so gross on so many levels. Obviously, he's just personally destroying these women's lives. And he's a cry bully throughout the whole thing. He's trying, he's doing the Israel move of just like, abusing others and then playing the victim. So that's just abhorrent. What I think is also just so corrosive is that YouTube and Twitch and all of the social media is built on building and critiquing the ideas of others. If you're going to put out some long video and people are going to critique it, maybe they are going to hate it. Maybe they are going to, thwart you in some way. Maybe they will technically violate some copyright law if you were to find it. But the spirit of YouTube has always been that you don't sue people over that type of stuff. You engage, right? Or you allow people to comment on your work. YouTube and I've reported on this extensively in my book about the negative associations a lot of the YouTube community had with the copyright system generally, because most YouTubers are getting copy strikes from big, reacting to like the Marvel movies or these big entertainment franchises. So copyright law has always been very intertwined with speech and speech law, obviously. And, Ethan knows that he can't pursue any sort of defamation case against these women. He knows that there's anti-slap protections, thank God, in California and other states. So he's trying to use copyright law to sort of set these, to punish these women. I don't even think he wants to set any sort of precedent here because he doesn't actually seem to care about winning these cases. He just cares about humiliating these women and financially destroying them. But I do think it's set this really nervous tone among YouTubers, where a lot of YouTubers are threatened to sue literally everyone that lightly criticizes him, while the entire time claiming to be the victim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's the Israel complex. Like, we're going to bomb you and kill you and destroy you and like amass all this money and weapons, but we're going to then simultaneously claim that we're the victims and you're bullying us. Just to be clear on this precedent issue, like I didn't mean like a legal precedent. I meant, I'll just tell you this quick anecdote, which is why this bothers me so much. Yeah. There's this journalist, Alex Quadras, and he's like a very well-regarded, accomplished journalist, has reported for like major political magazines all throughout the West, including like the New Yorker and the New York Times. And he wrote a book on Brazilian oligarchs. He was based in Brazil for a while. He's an American journalist, but he was based in Brazil, called Brazilianaires. And it was about like Brazilian billionaires and how they corrupt the political culture and dominate the country and subvert democracy. He could not get this book published in Brazil, despite his pedigree of journalism, because every publisher was petrified that they would just be vendetta sued into the ground by these billionaires who could obviously sue them forever. And it only got published in English in the US, where, it didn't sell very much and didn't make an impact because it was about Brazil. It was supposed to be published in Brazil, and he literally couldn't get it published there because of this idea that if I have enough money and you criticize me or you report on me or you challenge me in any way, I can have the best lawyers find some way to just destroy you, even if you've done nothing wrong. And we talk about the threats to online free speech and a free internet. This seems to be a really significant one to me. And as you said, big corporations use it all the time. And now we have someone who's involved in political disputes, a big defender of Israel. I think they do give lip service to maybe it is a genocide in Gaza, but clearly they're there to defend the IDF and Zionism. Basically sending the signal that if you criticize us, we'll destroy you. Yeah, they're liberal Zionists. Exactly.
Yeah, and they can say, "Oh, Israel commits a genocide," and then they're retweeting the people that are saying that there's no such thing as a genocide. I mean, they're just Ethan makes these comments, but you have to look at the totality of his behavior, and he's just a liberal Zionist. But I mean, you mentioned about this idea of this. First of all, that's horrible what happened to that journalist in Brazil, but we're seeing this happen so much in America. I think of actually David Enrich's fantastic book, New York Times journalist who reports a lot on these horrible lawsuits against the press, has a book called Murder the Truth. It's about the fight to overturn New York Times versus Sullivan, which is this seminal sort of free speech lawsuit in the US. But he talks about how increasingly there's these law firms that go out and sort of recruit targets, or they work with sometimes influencers, sometimes anyone that sort of like has a grievance, and they'll just fund these lawsuits. They get wealthy donors to fund these lawsuits and destroy, the target. And this is happening a lot to local journalists. This is happening increasingly to influencers. A lot of content creators that call out wrongdoing, citizen journalists, whatever you want to call these people, like a lot of them are they're challenging people in power. They're covering the stuff that the mainstream media is not willing to cover. They're speaking up about Palestine, whatever. And they have these powerful interests, these powerful legal firms, these powerful billionaires, whatever, suing them into the ground. And now you have then now you have Ethan Klein, who's also a powerful millionaire and has also aligned himself with other powerful rich Zionists like Ryan Kavanaugh. Ryan Kavanaugh, who co-founded Triller, he's like an entertainment guy with millions of dollars. He previously sued Ethan Klein for defamation. Ethan lost, and then they sort of aligned now because they're both Israel supporters to, I guess to have this sort of stance towards their critics, where they don't think anybody that has less money than them should be allowed to speak freely on the internet.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.